What I want to show you here is how to do double unit conversions. Okay, now these ones, the only difference between these ones and the other unit conversions we did is now you have a second unit to account for. So right here I got one of the more classic double unit conversion problems is 2,500 feet per second is what in miles per hour. Okay, so when you're converting to this, it's important to take note of everything that's changing. So feet needs to become miles, and seconds needs to be changed in hours. Okay, so when you're looking at this stuff, make sure you pay close attention to what's all that needs to be changed, because sometimes they can kind of trick you and say, you know, just change the top units, but don't change the bottom units. Okay, and we'll look at an example of that too. Okay, so when we do this one, we can employ that ladder, the ladder method I showed you in the last video. But in this case, since we have two unit conversions, you set up two separate rungs of the ladder. Okay. Now the important thing here is to remember what 2,500 feet per second means. That means I go 2,500 feet for every 1 second. Okay. That's an average, so you got to remember that because it helps you break up the units here. Because when you deal with these ones, there's not just a quick conversion. You can't just convert one unit and call it good. You have to convert both of them. Okay, both of them, not at the same time, but one and then the other. So the way I set this up is I put the 2,500 right here. In this case, feet. Then the 1 second down here. Okay, now remember with the unit conversions, the golden rule, if you're going to use this method, is same units diagonally. So if feet is here, feet's got to go right there, and that means miles goes on top. Okay, and you can do the time conversion in this slot too. You don't have to do the distance first. That's just what I always like to do. Let's fill in our units there. So I know 1 mile is 5,280 feet. That's supposed to be a 2. And then now here's the new thing. We have to convert this unit as well because it's in the wrong unit. Right now it's in feet per second. When I do this rung of the ladder, it'll be in miles per second, but I want it in miles per hour. So what we do is we put seconds up here. Okay, and the reason we put seconds up there is because, again, same units diagonally. The seconds and the seconds have to be diagonal from each other to cross out. So that means hours goes in the bottom. So now we put in our conversion for that. 1 hour is 3,600 seconds. Okay, so now we have to do the arithmetic on this. And what I always tell people to do, or where some people get confused, is just work one rung of the ladder at a time. So now, since 2,500 and 5,280 are diagonal from each other, we divide. So feet crosses out feet. We take 2,500, divide that by 5,280. Oops, a little backwards. Let's see. Erase that. Let's try that again. Let's see. So we got 5,280. Oh, having technical difficulties again. Let's see. 80, there we go. Okay, now here's the tricky part where some people, it kind of plays with their mind because they say, well, this is diagonal from this, so why don't I divide to get the answer? But when you're comparing the diagonal part, it's got to be to the original, okay? Now, since one's on the bottom, you multiply. So seconds crosses out seconds, and then I take that answer and I times it by 3,600. Okay, so remember, you're always comparing to the original, or if you want to keep it as simple as if one's on the top, divide, if one's on the bottom, multiply. But that's how you would convert that, because when I do this conversion, you know, this right here, when I divide that, that'll give it to me in miles, but it'll be in the wrong time. It'll be miles per second. So then when I times it by the 3,600, that'll change it to miles per hour. Okay, so let's see. Let's go ahead and do the arithmetic on that. Let me get that out of the way. Of course, I erased half of it. Let me see. Oh, might as well just write the whole thing again. So let's see. Still Okay, let's see. So what do we have to do on that one? Let's see. It was 2,500 divided by 5,280. Then I'm going to times that by 3,600. Okay, so let's do the calculation on that. My calculator. Pull this up here. You guys can see. I'll put it over there. So let's do 2,500 divided by 5,280. Oops, I think I pushed it twice. Yep, I did. 2,500 divided by 5,280. Okay, and this should be an extremely small number because you think about it, we're doing 2,500 feet. That's not even half a mile, so that number fits, okay? But now you look at this, this is how many miles we're going in a second, but I want to know how many we'll do in an hour. So then I take that answer and I times it by 3,600. So we get 1704.5. So I guess if we're talking about rounding here, let's just round that to 1705. So that's 1,705 miles per hour. Okay, so when you're setting up these dual conversions, you know, it's still the same process, you're just doing an extra step. I mean, you can piece this out too if you want to. I personally think it's better just to do it as one big calculation. But again, we kind of follow the same principle, same units diagonally, you know, as illustrated, feet here and here. Same units diagonally this way, seconds and seconds. Then just remember, diagonal, divide, straight across, multiply. Now, there's another problem I got listed here. It's one that kind of presents itself as a dual unit conversion, but it's actually not, because the difference between this one and the last one we did, they said change 120 kilometers per hour to miles per hour. So first and foremost, look at everything that's changing. The kilometers needs to become miles, but we look right here, the hours stays as hours. Okay, so when you see that, you really, since the time units aren't changing, you don't even need to acknowledge them in your calculation. So you could just think of this, you could just think of this as 120 kilometers is what in miles. I mean, just for unit conversion purposes, we don't even need to acknowledge the hours. So we set up our T-chart here, put 120 kilometers, so kilometers goes down here. Same units diagonally, right? And then miles goes on top. And then for every 1 mile, it's 1.6093 kilometers. You know, the most favorable number in the world. So, you know, again, when you send these up, you can use your unit conversions chart too. So on this one, remember, one's on top or diagonal divide. So to get the answer for this one, you take 120, and you divide that by 1.6093 kilometers. Let's see what that number is. 120 divided by 1.6093. So we get 74.5 again. So let's see, we're talking about miles per hour. Let's just round it up. Let's just say this is about 75 miles per hour. Okay, so since the time didn't change, we didn't even have to acknowledge it. We didn't have to set up a dual conversion. Okay, so when you're working with those dual conversions, you know, just make sure you take stock in everything that needs to be changed. You know, and if it doesn't need to be changed, don't change it. You know, just set up what does need to be changed and throw that extra unit in there. So hopefully this gives you a good idea of how to convert dual units. And again, I'll tag some notes with this page that you can look over too that kind of breaks it down in a typed out step-by-step process if that works for some people.